Hello everyone. It's been a little while. I just wanted to make a fun little video today. Now that all the Primarch models are announced, I thought I'd just do a little Primarch model tier list. This is just solely off of, I think, the aesthetics of the model and did they capture the character correctly and how cool they are. Not necessarily like how much I like the Primarch themselves. More just, the model itself. So first up is Lion of the Dark Angels. So obviously I'll be a little biased here. I played Dark Angels and just, and I have this model and I've built and painted it. So let's take a look. Obviously I love this model. It's I think it really perfectly captures everything about Lion, and it's got options. It's got a different head, so it's got a helmeted head, and it's got two different sword options. Um, it's got a cool action pose. He's busy in the sense that he's got a lot of details, but they're not overly fiddly or weird, if that makes sense. They all seem to make sense. It's he got sword, scabbard, knife. He's got his belt. The shoulder pads have details on them, but it's not crazy, ridiculous anything. Nice, simple flowing cape. Cool lion shoulder pad. I'm glad they didn't go too overboard with the lion iconography, because that's not really what Dark Angels look like. And then of course, a great paint job. I also am a little biased because he does look a little bit like me. Um, so yeah, and I've built and painted this, and it's probably the best model I've painted. So I absolutely love this. Plus he's killing Night Lords, which is always a good thing. So yeah, for me personally, this is an S. I think this is the perfect depiction of Lion. Um, he could be an A, but I'm gonna put him at S just because it's one of my favorites, probably top one, two or three slot. And I also just really love, Dark Angels, and I've painted him, so I have a little bit more attachment to him. So a biased first one, but so next would be the Second Legion, which is an expunged one. So third up is Fulgrim. Um, I'm conflicted about this model a lot. I think this was the second or third model they released, so it feels a little bit old. I think everything about this model is absolutely awesome except for his head. Um, and that to me brings it down a lot. I don't like the way his mouth looks with his scream. He just looks kind of more crazy and memey instead of elegant and ferocious. I really love the demon sword he has. His armor is perfect and how it's ornate, and the big eagle and all that stuff. It's a really cool model, but the face and the hair for me just completely lets it down, which is a huge bummer. I wish they had or they had a helmeted version of him. Then it would probably work better. You probably could do a Custodes helmet conversion or something, but to me the face is honestly the biggest downside of this model. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it at a B, a low B. Um, it just, I don't know, it just ruins it. His face just ruins it. All right, next we got Perturabo. Perturabo is kind of a dick, but understandably so. Um, but his model is actually really cool. Um, One thing I will say about the Chaos Primarchs is that I feel in a way them being their normal version is sort of a letdown, because I think their demon version of themselves is way cooler in the artwork and stuff. So with that in mind, just looking at him as normal Perturabo, I think this model actually is pretty cool and pretty much shows off, everything about him. He's got big chunky armor, these cool plates here, big guns with bullet chains and all this stuff. It's very like grungy metal and heavy looking, which is cool. He's also got a really cool base with like a wrecked knight or something here. And of course, a good paint job always goes a long way to making it look really good. But yeah, I mean, he's in Primarch Terminator armor, so this guy is giant and scary, and I think they did a pretty good job. He's not, like, aesthetically, it's not my favorite thing, but I think for capturing him and what he feels like, it actually did a pretty good job. So I'm going to put Perturabo at an A. Like a solid A. Alright, next up we've got Jagatai Khan. So this is the newest and final Primarch that they've announced. He finally gets a model. I don't have a 360 view of him yet. He's not on the Forge World site, but this was the Warhammer community page. And at last he's here. I think Jagatai Khan is super cool. The white scars are really cool. And he finally has an awesome model. I think this model is really, really good. It's got a lot of stuff going on, and it combines that sort of like Chinese Mongolian armor look, but also keeps it looking Space Marine-y. Like he's got these lamellar kind of plates here, and that's kind of like samurai Mongolian kind of armor. He's got, you know, the top knot and everything, and his sword looks great, looks really cool. It's ornate, but it's not too busy, even though there's tons of stuff. Like, it looks like a lot, but there's no one thing that's like too much, in my opinion. The only bummer about him is that he's not on a bike. I think that might have been why they delayed him so long, is because they might have been debating if they're going to put him on a bike. But as just like a model goes by himself, I think he's really, really good. I'm going to put him... This is a tough one. I'm going to put him on at an A, like a high A. I think he... Like, if he was on a bike, he would be, like, beyond S tier. He'd look so cool. That's really the only thing that's bad about him. But... It's solid. He's just really solid. Alright. Next is Leman Russ. So, unfortunately, I don't think this is one of their better ones. There's just a few things that, like, I think it's the way the pose is. And he suffers from a thing that comes up a lot in this, in that he's one of the, like, dueling Primarchs. Meaning, like, in his model, it's sort of meant to be like him versus Magnus, and their models together like make a cool diorama, which is cool when they're together, but like as their own entity, it doesn't work as well, because like if you just put him on, like just him here is like, where's the other half? Which I think is a huge bummer, because there's really cool stuff. Like I really like his leg plates. I think the leg plates are like the best part of this model, honestly. His chest armor and everything is pretty cool. The base is kind of whatever. These like stalactite things are pretty cool. He just lacks like oomph for like really ferociousness that I would like a similar I like put with Leman Russ. Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, he kind of misses the mark for me. Also, his pose is really weird. Like, he's running, which is cool, but then he's also, like, twisted, and then he's looking. And so it like, very specifically is like he's looking at somebody over here, which is Magnus. But when you're playing him on the table, like, it's just, I don't know. It's just a weird pose. Like, when we get to Angron, I'll tell you, like, Angron's version is much better because it works on its own and it looks ferocious, and you could easily put him in a diorama fighting somebody and it would still work. This is like, it only works when you put him next to Magnus. So unfortunately, Leman Russ I'm gonna put at a C, but like a low C. Just because I like him, like he's cool, but the model lets him down, which sucks. He also doesn't have a beard. Like, of all the Primarchs, I feel like he should have a beard. Like, Lion has a beard, which is fine and makes sense and looks cool, but like, how does the Space Wolf Viking guy not have a beard? I don't know. That's also another thing that bothers me. All right, now we got the Golden Boy. Well, first Golden Boy, Rogel Dorn. So, even though this model's really boring in the sense that like he's just standing there, like this perfectly encapsulates what Rogel Dorn is about. Just like big, sturdy, golden, ridiculously like decked out Space Marine commander guy. Like he's just got a big chainsword and a bolt pistol. He's got eagle, big cape with a big fist, and like this is just exactly what Rogel Dorn is. He doesn't need to be fancy, he doesn't need to be ferocious, he's just this like stern statue like guy. The face is okay. I think they could have made the face a little bit more like grim looking. He looks a little bit too young to me, but overall, like I think this is pretty cool. The base is okay. But his armor, especially with this paint job, like a really good paint job on him goes a long way because there's not much else going on. I think it's really good. I'm going to put him at an A. Even though he's boring, like this perfectly encapsulates what Rogel Dorn is about. So it's not the most dynamic or interesting, but like it's perfect for him. So I'm going to put him at like a medium to low A. It's not my favorite, but it's good. Speaking of not favorites, but good, Conrad Kurz. There's probably only one Primarch I like least in terms of lore than Conrad, which is Lorgar, because Lorgar is a punk, and I hate him. But this Conrad model is like almost perfect for him. It's really cool. He's got a really cool pose. It's scary. I've seen people do alternate paint schemes where this is like really dark and gritty and like there's lighting effects and stuff, and it looks really awesome. This paint job is actually, I think, kind of a letdown compared to some of the other ones I've seen. But yeah, I mean, this encapsulates Conrad really well. Like, he's a psychopath, and it shows. You know, he's got a cape made of skin and skulls and bones. He's got these, like, bloody heads with spines on his shoulders. 2 big power claws, and then literally just, like, claw fingers to, like, rip people apart. Like, this is a really good model. I pretty much would never own it. I hate Conrad, but in terms of models, this is awesome. Especially with the dead, I guess there's Solar Auxilia guys on the base. You can have a lot. I've seen a lot of really cool versions of this model. Again, like with Forge World stuff, I think the face is honestly the biggest letdown. I think they could have made him look way like crazier, if that makes sense. But, you know, it is what it is. So, in terms of models, I'm going to put Conrad at a high A. I'm going to put him above Jagtai, actually. I think it's a really good model, and it really perfectly like encapsulates what he's all about. All right, now the real Golden Boy, Sanguinius. Oh, Sanguinius. This model is so close to being so awesome. Like, the idea of this model is really cool and should be commended, but it just doesn't work. Like, the way, and I've seen this model in person also, I was like, oh, maybe it's the photographs. Like, it doesn't work on its own, and that's like the hugest downfall of it to me. I'll show you the other version. Like, he's got this one with a spear, which is really cool. And the thing is, he's supposed to be jumping down and like stabbing a demon. Like, his hand should be like on the demon's head, and he's about to stab it. But that's not there. I think it's on the display base. This is why I don't like this model, because like on the tabletop, this is what he looks like. He's not looking forward. He's looking straight down, and his hand is out like he's holding something, but nothing's there. So it's weird. Like as a display piece, if you had the demon up here and everything as his base, like then it's pretty cool. But when you just are playing with it, it doesn't work because there's no other half to the model. And that sucks because he's like the coolest Primarch. He's like the Primarch besides like Horus, basically. So yeah, it's a shame. I really wish that he just had like he just either had this or he had like just a flying angel pose like he's gonna swing or something different than this really committed like moment in the art and in the lore that he's from. The wings are awesome. The armor is awesome. I'm not a huge fan of the hair. I get what they're doing where it's flowing and it's sort of like a big Renaissance painting, which is awesome, but like it doesn't really work because hair with models just is really tricky to do right. And seeing this in person, when it's not painted correctly, it looks like fire hair or something. Like it just, I don't know, or like Super Saiyan hair. Like that's just sticking straight up. It's a big disappointment for me. I know some people really like this model. To me, it's just a huge like letdown because everything about it is really cool, but like the pose and the hair just like ruin it. So I am sadly putting it in a D. I think it's the biggest like letdown of all of them, um, because it could have been so good and it's not. So that sucks. But all right. So here's Ferrus Manus. This is another one of the dueling Primarchs, where he's sort of meant to be like facing off against Fulgrim, and you get that a little bit given the angle is like upwards. So like Fulgrim should be standing up here, and they're looking at each other while they're fighting, which is really cool. This one at least works on its own because you can take him off the base and then he's, just swinging. He's just swinging the hammer. It is a little bit awkward because he's sort of like leaned up and he's so much bigger that he'd actually be leaning down fighting most things. But like this one at least still works on its own, in my opinion. And it's pretty cool. It's got this like really thick kind of like Roman plate armor look. All the like tubes and stuff, making him basically like a giant like tech marine Primarch, kind of like Perturabo, which is really neat. And then of course, his arms literally are like like liquid metal, so he doesn't need armor on them, which I think is a really cool touch. And facially, he's pretty good. I think they could have made him look more like beat up and a little bit like uglier, because that's kind of part of his like shtick or whatever, is that like Fulgrim's this like perfect, beautiful phoenix, and he's this like ugly, deformed, like beaten up, angry Gorgon. Is like their nicknames for each other. So here he looks kind of just like a normal guy. Like I think they could have made him look more like wrinkled and kind of like maybe burned or like cut up or something. But maybe that's just my interpretation of it. But I think this model's pretty solid. Of course, there's dead guys. There's dead Iron Hand, dead Emperor's Children. So yeah. So Ferrus Manus, I'm gonna put at a solid B. I think he's better than Fulgrim, but they kind of go together. So I think they're fine. They're not like, holy crap, this is amazing, but they're really good. All right, who's next? Angron. All right, I believe Angron was the first Primarch model they came out with, and to me, it still actually is like one of the best ones. This encapsulates him really well, and this is kind of where I wish they did more with Leman Russ, where it's a more like it's a standalone pose, but he can also be like running and killing somebody or fighting them in a duel like scene, and it still works on its own. So like this is the better version of encapsulating that. Um, he's really simple, which is good for him. You know, he's just kind of got like the basic armor. It's nothing crazy. Like it's just sort of all brass. Two big chain axes. You know, he doesn't even have gloves on. He's just like got this really like grungy gladiator running in, just murdering everyone thing. And his base shows that really well. He's got probably the most dynamic base, if not for Magnus, which you'll see. But like this base where he's slicing open his own guys, like he's killing his own world eaters when they purge out the loyalists in their own legion. So you could obviously paint these as something else, but like this is such an iconic moment in the books. I think this is, and it's really good. And like this face is great. Like this is what you think of Angron. Like he's this crazy, angry dude. You see the butcher nails in there. He's basically got like fangs because he's so like evil and just like right. He looks ferocious and scary and just like crazy like Angron would, and it looks like he's running and gonna come kill somebody. And that could be anything. That could be any little unit. That could be a dreadnought. That could be another Primarch on the table. So it works against multiple things, and it works on its own standalone. If anything, I would say maybe he could be like a little bit beefier. Like his legs look a little skinny, but you know, whatever. Like I think this is one of the better ones still. So I'm gonna put this at a solid A. I think it's almost S. It's like it might even be S, honestly. But I don't want to give too many of these. I think this is probably the best Primarch model that's not like if I liked Angron more as like a Primarch and all that stuff, which I know I'm not supposed to judge it on, I'd probably put it in S. I think it's really good. All right. Who cares? It's Robot Gilliman. I know that's a thing. The thing is that like this actually pretty well encapsulates him. It's just so boring. Like it's just blech. Like even his base is just like a slab of marble. Woo. Like he's got the display base, but then his display base is like, oh look, a bigger slab of marble. Like it's just really boring. And although people be like, yeah, but he is kind of boring. He is. He's just kind of a, you know, Boy Scout. But yeah, it's just, to me, this does nothing. To me, this looks like every other Space Marine character they've like ever released ever. Like if you just shrunk him down to be the size of a Space Marine captain, like he wouldn't look any different. So to me, like this is one of my least favorites. Not because like I hate Robot Gilliman or anything, but it's just like so blah. Like there's just nothing going on that's interesting to me. So for that, I'm putting him in D. Which sucks. Like he and Sanguinius is awesome, but the model just like ruins everything about it. This model just had like nothing going on. So it's D for me. Like it's just bad. All right, we got Mortarion. I don't really like Mortarion that much, like as a Primarch or anything, but I think this model's pretty cool. The only thing with him is that like his current 40k version is like the coolest model in the game. So when you compare this version of him to the 40k version, you're kind of like, like this is sort of a letdown. But you know, 10,000 years of chaos corruption makes you look cooler, I guess. He looks the most like evil and like chaosy of all of them, kind of right out the gate. I think the model's pretty cool. It's very boring and drab, but that is what the Death Guard are like. Like when you read some of their stuff, they're kind of just like, they have just like unpainted gray walls, kind of unclean gray or white armor. Like it's not really, they're just grungy and like simple and not ornate. His scythe thing is really awesome. And he looks correct. Like he looks like Mortarion would. These sort of like sensor things. The one thing I wish that they had was, I wish he had like a breather mask or something to like breathe in the like specific oxygen or like toxic stuff he has to breathe from being on his planet. I wish that was there. His face is fine and creepy and scary, but I feel like if he had like a big like mechanical mask thing on with like steam coming out of it or something, or just like plugged in, he'd look even more like scary and Grim Reaper-ish. But I think he's fine. It's not my favorite model. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it at a B, like a low B. Magnus. All right. I love this model. It's got so much going on. I like Magnus as a character kind of already. Um, so that's a little bit of a bias, but this is just such a dynamic. Like, this is what the Sanguinius model wishes it was, kind of, where it's like, this perfectly encapsulates everything about him, and it's a pose, and it works on its own, and it works in the duel versus Lehman Russ. And, like, he's just awesome looking. Like, just the big armor with all the little, like, scarab runes and stuff. And then, you know, the hair and the face, like, all of that is good. He looks kind of like... He looks very, like, magical, like a big sorcerer, but he's also giant and scary. And then the coolest thing to me is just the spell. Like, this base is so cool. Where the rocks are getting, like, morphed into the, like, Tzeentch warp fire type stuff, and he's shooting it. And it looks like he kind of went like whoosh with his hand like that, and he's throwing it at Lehman Russ. It's just really cool. Like, this is just so cool to me. This is maybe my favorite Primarch model. So yeah, obviously, like, to me, the Magnus model gets an S. I think it's the best one. Because it works on its own. It's really awesome. It encapsulates the character. It's got a really dynamic base, and like the display base, and then him doing like casting a spell is like everything about him, and it works on the tabletop. So yeah, he's awesome. I think it's the best one. All right, Horus, the big boy. So this is, you know, obviously like pre-Uber corrupted Horus. This is kind of like during the heresy starting Horus. I've seen alternate paint jobs of this where they paint him like a Luna Wolf, so he's white still. I've seen him where it's black like this, and you can be like, oh, he's a son of Horus, or, you know, he's his own thing. I think it's really good. It pretty much perfectly encapsulates everything about Horus, this big kind of imposing Darth Vader guy with a big mace and a big claw and this sort of stern face. He's not like anything crazy, but he's imposing and scary and commanding, which is like what he's supposed to look like. The base is a little bit boring. You know, it's just kind of this, you know, like staircase. But I think it's really cool. And it looks a lot like the artwork. So I think this is a solid one. There's not much to not like about it, and there's not much to be like, oh wow, that's amazing. So like, it's fine, it's good. For that, I'm gonna put it at a high B, I think, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. It encapsulates things, but it's not as interesting as any of the A ones to me. Like, even Rogel is kind of almost better because it can be boring and still work. So I think these two are kind of interchangeable, Rogel and Horus. But okay, Lorgar. Lorgar is kind of the same. I already don't like Lorgar, so that kind of tints a little bit. But like, he's just kind of boring to me. Like, there's just not really... He's just standing there, looking at you. He's got, like, the mace is really cool. The armor's really cool. But he kind of just looks like an old man. Like, just like an angry old man. Like, I kind of actually wish they made him look younger and more, like, tricky looking or something. And had, like, a book and more, like, scrolls and stuff. Or at least had a base that had, like, torches or like something around him to make him look kind of like grim and demonic and weird. But like this, he just sort of looks like generic space knight guy. Like, I don't really like this model. I've never seen it. I don't know of anybody who was like excited about it. I think that's just a problem with Lorgar too, but he's just whatever. Like I don't really care about this model. So it's going in the D. It's probably my least favorite model of all of them. Because like Gilliman is boring and this model's really blah, but it at least suits his character a little bit. The Lorgar one I just think is like there's nothing interesting about it. Like I just don't like it at all. All right, Vulcan, our other big boy. Um, I really think this model's cool. Uh, it works on lots of levels because again you can have it as a standalone model and you can have it dueling like Fulgrim or whoever, or Perturabo or Kurz or anybody, and it still works. Um, he's giant and imposing, and this big hammer is just really cool. He's got a lot of flame motifs, but he doesn't have like too much going on, you know, which I think is important. Like when you put too much stuff on a model, it sort of takes everything away from everything. He's got just enough going on where it's like, okay, this is sculpted flame. You know, he's got the flame gauntlet, the salamander's iconography, big hammer, and then the dragon cloak. And I don't know, it just works. It's really cool. He's really intimidating. He looks like strong and powerful, which is what Vulcan is. So I think this is a really good model. It's nothing like super special, but it's not bad by any means. I'm gonna put this at a solid B. I think it's just below Horus. No, I think it's better than Horus actually. Horus is just kind of, a little bit boring. They could have done a little bit more with him. This I think is pretty much correct. They could have maybe put like some fire or like him shooting fire, and then it would like bump up a lot. But it is what it is. It's okay. All right, we got Corvus Corax. Uh, Again, this is kind of like the Sanguinius model, where like I think it's trying to do something and it's kind of succeeding at least, unlike the Sanguinius model. Um, this one works by itself. Like if you take the guy away and you just have him, on a base or whatever, it still works. Like he's jumping and he's shooting a guy, right? So it still looks okay. It's just kind of boring also. Like his armor is just very simple, which isn't a big deal really, but he doesn't look any different than like Shrike or like some other Raven Guard character. The big wing jetpack thing is really cool. His face is kind of derpy, I guess. Like it's like, like, and again, the flowing hair to me, like the flowing hair thing just like never works, because if you do it right, it looks okay, but if you do it wrong, it looks like Super Saiyan hair or something, and it just isn't. I don't know. I don't like it. So this model's okay. It's nothing. It's nothing great. I think. The claws are cool. His pistol looks kind of dinky, also, which I know it's supposed to be kind of like a, like a silenced pistol looking thing, but it just looks kind of like dinky. I don't know. I feel like it would be bigger and chunkier and just like boof, like blow this guy apart, as opposed to kind of like a little like beep gun. But I don't know. This is kind of a whatever model. I don't really care that much about Raven Guard in general, and then the fact that their Primarch model is also kind of like meh is whatever. I'm gonna put it at a C. It's about even with the Leman Russ model for me. They just have different things wrong with them. His at least works on its own, but I think overall it's just more boring and meh. The Leman Russ one like looks more correct, but the pose and like the fact that it has to be against Magnus to make it work is the biggest letdown to me. All right, our final and possibly best one, Alfarius / Omegon. This model is so cool. Like, it's so cool. I think I've seen it in person once, and it was impressive how cool it was. Like, everything about this is just perfect. Like, the fact that he's got a helmet on is really nice because it makes him keep that, like, anonymous, you don't know if it's actually him thing. All the scale work on his armor, the Hydra theme is really cool. This helmet is, like, one of the coolest things about him, in my opinion. Like, the the crest, the little like thing, and the jewel in the center. It's just so cool to me. And then he's got the multiple Hydra head backpack. Like, it's just, like everything comes together perfectly in this. And the best thing about him is that, like, the point of him as a Primarch is that he's not supposed to be this, like, crazy standout giant, like, regal guy. He kind of is just, like, looks like a normal Space Marine that's, like, maybe a little fancy. And he looks really fancy, but he's not huge. He's not imposing. He's not drawing attention to himself. He's kind of just like sneakily coming in here. He's killing this Space Wolf. I mean, you could make it whatever. Yeah, like this model is so good. It's so, so, so good. This might be the best model, honestly. But I think, for me, I think he's above Lion. And he's below Magnus for me. Because this is like the most detailed, coolest looking model. But Magnus has so much more going on and also encapsulates that. So, there we go. Those are my results. I hope that was somewhat entertaining to people. So yeah, we got Magnus, Alfarius, and Lion as the top three. I think these are just really awesome. Close is Angron. And then Kurz, Jagatai Khan, Perturabo, and Dorn as A tier. B tier, we got Vulcan, Horus, Ferrus Manus, Fulgrim, and Mortarion. These are fine. Like, there's nothing really that wrong with them. Fulgrim is a little bit wrong with his face, but, like, overall, it's still pretty good. These two are just sort of, like, missed potential. They're not bad. They're just... They could have been a lot better, and that makes me sad. And then D are, like, ones I legitimately don't like. So D is, like... Sanguinius I don't like because it's such a wasted opportunity, because it's really cool, but it just doesn't work. And then it looks bad to me. Robo Gilliman is just, like, so boring. He's just like, I'm standing. He looks just like every other character in the game, and doesn't look very much like a Primarch. And then Lorgar's model is just boring. He's just standing there. There's nothing that interesting about him or creepy or whatever. He's just like, man, I got a mace. Or I don't know. He's not that interesting. So anyway, that's my tier list. Let me know what you think. If you want to do this, you can find it on the Tier Maker site. Yeah, be sure to check me out on social media stuff. I paint on Twitch, trying to make more YouTube stuff when I can. Yeah, I'll see y'all next time.